question one is, what made you go into this career field?
Well, I'm in a small animal clinic right now, but actually originally, I liked being outdoors. I liked my dog. Like my grandparents had a dairy farm, which was kind of turning more into a hobby farm by the time I got to, say junior high age and kind of started thinking about things. But I liked animals, and there were animals on the farm, and I had cousins that had dairy farms, and so I had exposure to that. So I was thinking more about large animal type dairy work, and probably as much farming or engineering or carpentry or a variety of things. So I think, for you guys, explore all your interests. Nothing, as much as the core of what you're doing right now is going to go a long ways to, shape your any career. But I would just say have a lot of interests and not just get focused on one thing, because you might have to make an adjustment throughout your life. So I think it was probably in junior high that, my dad particularly kind of saw, why don't you stay out of farming, because we're renting out this farm, and the farm's not big enough to do what kind of modern farming is like. And but if you like animals so much, maybe you should think about being a veterinarian. It's like, okay, maybe. And so through high school, I was pretty good in math and science, and always dug into those things. And so I kind of got that on the brain, through high school. And so as much as many people certainly change their mind and get to college and change their mind, or you're aiming for one degree and you're thinking about, maybe I should aim for even a let's say bigger degree, tougher degree. So anything can lead to something else, but kind of along the way, I would say I kind of kept eliminating the other things. It wasn't so much that I knew from the start that I'm going to be a veterinarian, but I was kind of thinking, and I grew up in Rochester here, so I'm thinking, well, there's the Mayo Clinic. You could be a doctor, a nurse. There's 1,000 other job descriptions at the Mayo Clinic. But in my head at that time, it's doctor or nurse. I didn't know about all the other stuff. And then there was IBM. My dad was at IBM, and I spent a couple summers. I spent a couple summers and a little bit between during my time at the college, working part-time at the Mayo Clinic. So I got a big feel for what the Mayo Clinic was about, and I spent a summer in college working at IBM too. So I had a good, and those were to me the two big choices, and there's, you could do a number of other things, restaurants and all kinds of other things, but I figured those were the big two. And I kind of saw that I was willing to take a chance being more independent. I'd have to push myself, I'm responsible for other people, and I'm responsible to, keep myself going, and can't be lazy, can't, have to, if you're somebody who needs to be prodded along, that's not the type of person to run a business on their own. And so, so I kind of got this mindset that, yes, I'm going to have to do this on my own, and I think I'm up for it. So that's a big decision. It's not so much what you're doing, but it's just what kind of business are you going to go into. As much as I loved animals, I still like people more, and so helping people and helping the animals, seemed to be where I was going. One thing I didn't realize is, as I was a youth and doing, Carrie can attest to this, as I was doing woodworking projects and stuff, I kind of became the one who likes to fix things. And so whether, you're fixing a building, or fixing a birdhouse, or you're fixing a fence, or you're fixing whatever, well, I kind of mentally think of it as been put on this earth to fix animals. And so, I've done a lot of projects and built furniture and all kinds of things before I graduated from high school, and I didn't really think about it so hard. But by the time I got into veterinary school and we got to surgical things, it's like this just comes really naturally for me. I get this, and so from little on, I think I was preparing for what I'm doing now, but I didn't really realize it. So that's why I said earlier, explore a lot of different things, because you don't know which tools you're creating for yourself that are going to come into play later too. So I was kind of surprised that I figured everybody has these hand skills, and everybody can, think their way through building something or making something. But I realized a lot of people haven't had that exposure, and they were tentative in surgery and this and that. And so I'll show you a picture after a while here. We had a dog that broke its leg over the weekend and just really shattered its lower leg. And so we've pinned it together where all these pieces are the bones of about 8 pieces. And we've kind of shaped it back together so it's supported outside of the leg on one side, and the other little bone, the fibula on the lower leg, is supporting the other side. And so again, I kind of built this leg back together. Well, that's fun for me. Not everybody wants to do that. Most clinics refer complex fractures and stuff. I'm the one who wants to receive those. So it was kind of all of those things that kind of shaped me into who I am, and I adjusted to that. I did do large animal work for about the first 7 years, and as our practice has grown and neighborhoods grow up, our small animal side was needing expansion, and so we hired. I was doing both, but we hired more large animal people, and I shifted out of that. My body thanks me for not having to deal with the cold and get shoved around by 1,500-pound animals. So I kind of miss not being outside, but I think parts of it is good that I kind of narrowed my focus and not trying to be everything everywhere, because there's just too many things to keep track of to do them. So that was kind of the long answer. But,
is there any best or worst parts of your job?
Probably the best part is, I work with a great bunch of people. We all seem to be a good team. We treat each other like family. I'm sure everybody gets, tired of each other a little bit, but, I think that for the most part, everyone enjoys coming to work every day and helping people. So that's really the best part. I love fixing animals, so it's just, it's an endless, bunch of animals to fix. At times, at moments, you're trying to get through one thing, and there's just one other and another and another and another. And so if you're an auto mechanic and there's another vehicle and another vehicle, and it's kind of like, you could just use a break once in a while. And then there's a whole pile of records to write up too. So I find that I'm fixing animals and writing records nonstop. And I was working on some records this morning that aren't totally caught up. And because, when something comes back in and somebody's saying, well, this worked, but this didn't work, what are we going to do now? You got to recall what you did, so you got to keep an accurate running log of what's going on, what worked, what you tried, what happened. So you need feedback from owners and so on all that. Otherwise, you don't know if you did a good job or not, or if you do the same thing because that's the way you were taught and it's not working out. Somewhere along the line, you need to learn that, no matter what kind of field you're in. So being open to feedback is really important, because it gives you a chance to continue to learn and improve and shape how you do something. And so I'm sure I've evolved over many years, and many things you don't even know when you started doing it that way, because it kind of drifted or got reshaped or whatever, and we're just trying to be consistent, get consistent results. So when we send home a treatment for an animal, we do callbacks, and or clients might call back and say, hey, this isn't working, or this, or when we call them, the dog is doing much better and eating, and I can say, okay, what I did was right, and okay, keep that in mind, you're going to use that again soon. So as far as the worst side, really, I think I'm pretty dang lucky to have this job. I mean, it's a good job. I get to work with good people. There's you could say the biggest negative is, and I've kind of promised myself I won't let this happen to me. So this is stuff that I try to avoid, because you're fixing things and you're trying to do a good job all the time. There's actually quite a stress in the burden of, I got to get this one right, and I got to get that one right, and we see each doctor sees about 3,500 appointments a year.
Wow.
So I want to go. My goal is to go 3,500 and 0 as far as communicating well, doing the best for the animal. I mean, some of those are animals that it's time for for their life to end, and you're working through a decision to put them to sleep. Last week, somebody came in on Tuesday. Their animal was already had a string of health issues, couldn't see very well, can't hear, bumps into things, and now it had some upset stomach problem and some vomiting and diarrhea, and he's been kind of stiff. And yet he's happy, and I looked at him, I'm thinking, the dog looks happy, you're telling me you want him to be put to sleep, and their plan was to put him to sleep later that week, last Friday in fact. And so there were 3 days in between, and they wanted to talk about it, so of course my head starts going into gear, how do I fix this? And I could have just left it and say, yep, he's getting old, whatever you want to do, we're with you. And I did tell him that, hey, we're with you 100%, but you're inquiring about things, and, forgive me, but automatically my brain starts trying to figure out how to fix this, so I'm evaluating which problem is probably the most important on their mind to get fixed. And so I said, you were planning for Friday, I've got 3 days, which is not a lot of time, but this vomiting diarrhea business, we got to get that solved. And it sounds like your dog is quite stiff, and we could solve that with the med. It wasn't on any medication for anything. And so they said, well, you got your 3 days, see what happens, and if it doesn't improve much, we're going to put the dog to sleep, and fine, that's good, and reasonable and all of that. So on Friday they called, and they wanted refills on all the meds. The dog was doing much better.
Oh, wow.
Well, I don't want to drag every old dog, but this dog wasn't so bad off in my mind, but it was in their mind, and it seemed like the latest problem was kind of like the final straw, except it didn't look like what I would think is that. And so who knows whether they're back in 2 weeks, or they're back at the end of summer, or next year sometime. I don't know, but I'm trying to help them. I'm not trying to dictate that it has to go my way, or you aren't good owners, or this or that. So there's a stress burden, and sadly for our profession, there is actually a fairly high suicide rate. There's sadly high suicide rate for a variety of reasons in many professions, but ours kind of runs high, and I think part of it is people, get internalized with the decision or the stress of what's going on, whether this animal, lives or eventually dies. And I don't know if